I am the chosen one. That's why every now and then I make videos that go against the grain and support the underdogs who aren't tactical enough to have a strong voice. I am the subversion king who leads the charge against popular thoughts when I deem it necessary because I have a degree in anime debating. Before I start my analysis, I need to put out a warning. If you're a person who tells people to kill themselves when they don't like your favorite manga, you're not ready for this. If you're one of those snowflakes on Twitter who can't handle a different opinion, you're not ready. If you're a sheep that regurgitates opinions that you hear everyone else saying, you're not ready. You need to turn around and grind until your level is high enough to hear this. If you aren't ready and you still watch this, you can't say I didn't warn you. But if you've seen a good percentage of my videos and are still subbed, you're probably ready. I recommend watching what makes a good character, and Sakura is a good character, before watching this. Female characters in shonen battle manga are not perfect, but they're not terrible either. Before I go into this, I do want to make it clear that the top level of men are definitely treated and written better than the top level of women in shonen manga. My main point is that the top women are not treated badly or problematic, especially when you compare them to mid-level men. As you know, it's a common belief that females are written poorly in battle manga, but I think part of that perception is actually the fault of the audience. In other words, I believe that there are several instances where the audience is the one discriminating against female characters. By now, I should have released my video praising Sakura as a character, which carried on great points I made in my series of making a good character. A lot of the following is what I've personally seen. One major criticism given to Sakura is that she's bad because she has no goal or has a shallow dream. Gaara, from the same manga, has no dream, but I don't see anyone criticizing him for it. Maybe you're saying that no dream is better than a shallow one. Then I'll bring up Shikamaru. His dream is to live a simple life and be lazy. Yet he's a fan favorite character. I could also bring up Spike Spiegel, like I've been doing. He has no goal, but he's a collectively loved character. Another criticism is she doesn't have an arc or her arc is weak. She has an arc, so that argument is nullified. Look at her growth from part 1 to part 2. I could once again use Spike or L as examples that are in the same boat, but I'll choose someone from the same story. Rock Lee. He has no arc, but once again, he's a fan favorite. So goals and arcs aren't valid arguments. What's left is she's weak or she's annoying. Annoying is very subjective, and weak is something that I'll tackle later. But here's another thing she's hated for, a controversial decision. I believe that when she confessed to Naruto, that's when she was solidified as a despicable character in the collective's eyes. You know who else made controversial decisions? Sasuke, Itachi, and Tobirama. Sasuke killed people and tried to kill Naruto and the 5 Kages. Itachi slaughtered his clan and joined the Akatsuki, and I'll get into Tobirama later. The first 3 all did something bad, but another thing they have in common is that they believed that what they were doing was for the greater good, despite the means. Sakura believed that she was helping Naruto, Sasuke believed that he was saving the world, and Itachi believed that he was saving Konoha. Sasuke is met with some disdain, but he had this before he killed Itachi, so I don't know how much stems from these actions. I know some stems from him going against Itachi's wishes, but I've already explained that in another video. Itachi, however, was met with almost universal praise for his actions. I think the different levels of understanding is connected to how much people already like the characters. Itachi was completely understood, Sasuke took time to understand, and people still don't understand Sakura. That order lines up with how much I believe each character is liked. And then there's Tobirama. This dude was a whole bigot and discriminated against all Uchiha. I think he also believed that it was in their nature or genetics to be bad, but I don't really see people hating on him like they do Sakura. I think another reason for the difference in their level of hate is how powerful each character is. But like I said, I'll focus on that later. I only use Naruto because I've refreshed my memory on the story several times due to my reboot series. But I'm sure that if I read Bleach or Fairy Tail, I'd be able to point out the same kind of discrimination against females like Orihime or Lucy. Overall, a lot of women that are used to show that shonen can't write females are actually good characters. I'll say shonen because it's faster than battle manga. Either the fans don't know what makes a good character, the fans are discriminating against females, or they aren't strong, which brings me to my second supporting argument. Viewers believe that shonen women aren't strong for 2 main reasons. They are not as strong as the strongest men, and they do not win as many battles as the most victorious men. I've never heard anyone explicitly say this, but when I started to think about it and looked at the statistics, it became clear that this is the unconscious measurement that is being used. Let me explain. If Sakura was as powerful as Naruto and Sasuke all throughout the story and won as many battles as the one with less wins between the men, would people be saying Naruto sucks at writing females? I don't think so, even if she was still annoying. Same goes for Bleach. If Orihime was as strong as a captain and won as many fights as Kenpachi or Byakuya, do you think people would complain about Bleach's women? I don't think so. And once more, if Nami was as strong as the monster trio and won as many fights as Sanji, would the community bitch and moan about women? Maybe because of the body proportions, but definitely not because of her strength. But both of these are horrible ways to judge a character and have holes in their arguments when you look deeper. This is an atrocious argument because you are basically amounting how well a character is written to the amount of fights they win. How does that make sense? It doesn't. In my video, I did say that the actions in the plot can increase a character's quality, but fights would rank low on the quality of actions. Like I said in my Sakura video, when a character makes difficult decisions, it reveals more about who they truly are. I believe those kinds of actions elevate a character's quality. Fights are just icing on the cake. Let me give you some examples. Which one made Naruto a better character? Beating the pains in a fight or choosing to forgive Nagato? What about Byakuya? Beating Arrancar's in battle or choosing to protect his sister after Ichigo helped him change his mind? What about Luffy? Beating Lucci or choosing to fight the government in order to save Robin? I rest my case. Now I'll be doing math. I'm only looking at the big three, but a lot of what I will say can apply to other manga like Fairy Tail or Hero Academia. I'll be attacking the argument that women are not as powerful as men. The argument is very sly. Whenever it's made, you can see that the true issue is that the most powerful women are not as powerful as the most powerful men. Women are never compared to others that would harm their argument. This is usually the case in Naruto. If you put Sakura and Hinata next to Naruto or Sasuke, they are definitely inferior. But if you put Sakura next to Kakashi, her sensei, Sai, her teammate, or anyone from Konoha 11, she'll look extremely competent, but that's never done because it would hurt their argument. If you put Hinata next to Shino or Kiba, her teammates, she'd be around the same level as Shino and definitely above Kiba. Tsunade is weaker than the other two Sannin, but when you compare her to the rest of the Kages that fought Madara, she was taking the lead due to her power. Nami and Robin are definitely weaker than most of the Straw Hats. There's no counter there. Orihime isn't even a fighter, but people always want to measure her strength as an argument. The fact that she doesn't fight after the intro of the Arrancar arc and plays the role of a shield and healer in the final battle shows that she became the protector of the team and retired as an attacker. By the end of the story, Rukia is arguably stronger than Uryu and Chad, Ichigo's human allies. But you'll rarely hear that point because she's weaker than Ichigo and Renji. Nami is around the same level as Usopp and Chopper without Monster Point. Robin is around the same level as Frankie or Brook, but because neither of them are on the same level as the Monster Trio, is problematic. If I were to make tiers, I'd have top, mid, and low. It's true that women rarely enter the top tier, but I'll get into that later. My main issue right now is that fans would have you believe that women are in the low tier, which is not true when you look at the statistics. Now for win ratios. An underlying argument when these characters are called weak is that they do not win as much as the most victorious men. But like the previous argument, that's never made clear. Instead, it's framed as if all men rack up wins, while women are left behind. Let's start with Naruto. Sakura doesn't have as many wins as Naruto or Sasuke, but she does perform better than most men. Let's look at the stats for mid-tier characters. Sakura would have lost to Team Dozi, she tied against Ino, she beat Sasori with Chio, and she worked together to beat Kaguya. That would be 2 wins, 1 tie, 1 loss. Kakashi was actually captured by Zabuza at first, but after being freed, he beat him. I'll count that as a tie. He beats Zabuza, loses to Itachi, is saved against Kakuzu, loses to Pain, beats Obito, and helps in defeating Kaguya. 3 wins, 1 tie, 3 losses. Sai has no solo fights to speak of, but he helps bring down Deidara. That's 1 win. Shikamaru beat Kin, lost to Tamari, would have lost to Tayuya, and beat Hidan. 2 wins, 2 losses. Lee was beating Sasuke, lost to Gaara, and would have lost to Kimimaro. That's 1 win and 2 losses. Neji beat Hinata, lost to Naruto, and beat Kidomaru. 2 wins, 1 loss. Choji lost to Dozu, beat Jirobo, and was losing to Kakuzu. 1 win, 2 losses. Kiba lost to Naruto, and would have lost to Sakon and Ukon. 2 losses. Shino beat Zaku and Kankuro. 2 wins. Hinata lost to Neji and Pain. 2 losses. Jiraiya tied with Itachi and Kisame, won against Orochimaru, and lost against Pain. 1 win, 1 tie, 1 loss. Orochimaru beat Naruto, tied with Sasuke, beat Hiruzen, lost to Jiraiya and Tsunade, and lost to Sasuke. 2 wins, 1 tie, 2 losses. Tsunade won against Orochimaru and Kabuto as a team, and lost to Madara. 1 win, 1 loss. Let me stop there. I decided to use soccer rules when counting the points. A win is +3, a loss is -3, and a tie is +1. Here are the scores. Shino has 6, Sakura has 4, Sai and Neji have 3, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru have 1, Shikamaru and Tsunade have 0, Lee and Choji have -3, Kiba and Hinata have -6. So if we're gonna judge women by how many fights they win or lose, and what the ratio is, we can do the same with men. Notice how Shikamaru, a respected character in the community, scored a 0, and Lee, another respected character, scored a -3. So how can these characters get so much respect if they lose as often or more often than they win? It's because they're men. When it comes to men in battle manga, the community actually cares about how well written they are, which is how it should be. But when it comes to women, it's about how many fights you win. I have acknowledged that Sakura is disliked for being annoying as well, but neither of those can be pinned as bad female writing because A, she's well written despite this, and B, there are more examples of successfully written women in Naruto like Hinata or Tsunade. Let me quickly throw the Sand siblings into the mix. Gaara beats Lee, loses to Sasuke, loses to Naruto, beats Kimimaro, loses to Deidara, and loses to Madara. That's -6 points. Tamari beats Tenten, Shikamaru, and Toyuya. That's 9 points. Kankuro beats Tsurugi, loses to Shino, beats Sakon and Ukon, and loses to Sasori. That's 0 points. Tamari has the highest score among her peers, among the Sannin, and among the entire list. Meanwhile Gaara, a Kage, is at the bottom of the list, which is also under a female Kage. Hinata has the lowest score here, but she's tied with 2 male characters, so it's not like the women are at the bottom of the barrel while the men are at the top. And let's not forget how it's often ignored that the final new villain, and easily the strongest character in part 2, is Kaguya, a woman. Even the Sage of Six Paths is not as powerful as her. But when she's brought up, now suddenly character development or being likable matters. Now let's do a count for Bleach's mid-tier characters. Rukia. I'm not counting Fishbone because she took a hit for Ichigo. She loses to Shrieker, beats Deroy Rinker, loses to Grimjo, beats Arvaniero, was about to beat Rudeborn, loses to Yami, ties against Riruka, and beats As Not. 4 wins, 1 tie, 3 losses. Renji loses to Ichigo twice, loses to Byakuya, beats Ilford, would have lost to Appo, loses to Yami, beats Jackie, loses to Mask, and beats Mask. 3 wins, 6 losses. Uryu beats Jirobo, beats Mayuri, beats Tsuruchi, would have lost to Appo, fights with Ichigo against Ginjo for some time, I'll count that as a tie, and ties against Haschwald. Chad loses to Shrieker, beats Bulbus, loses to Shinsui, beats Mosqueda, and loses to Yami. 2 wins, 3 losses. Uryu has 8 points, Rukia has 4, Chad has -3, Renji has -6. Rukia is under a male, but she has positive points and is above 2 other males with negatives. I only excluded Ichigo because he's the protagonist, and Orihime because she's not a fighter. And this time, there are no excuses for ignoring Rukia. She has a great backstory and isn't annoying. Hell, she's even stronger than everyone except for Renji on this list. But Shonen still has a female problem, right? I won't do the same for One Piece because it's faster to summarize. Nami isn't even really a fighter, having only 3 battles so far, but she's won 2 of them, and I'd say she tied the last one since she lost then won. Like Sakura, criticism towards her might be due to her personality, but my rebuttal is the same as well. Robin is kind of a fighter, and she has a good record. She beat Pell, Toshiki, Yama, and Black Maria in solo fights, and lost to Enel and Oars. Meanwhile Sanji, the 3rd strongest, has probably lost as many times as he's won. In fact, let me calculate Sanji's score quickly. I'm not counting joke fights or goons. He lost to Pearl, lost to Jin, beat Kurobi, beat Mr. 2, beat Satori, lost to Enel, lost to Aokiji, beat Jerry, beat Wanze, lost to Caulifla, beat Jabra, beat Absalom, lost to Oars, lost to the Pacifistas, lost to Ivankov, beat PX7, beat Wadatsumi, lost to Virgo, lost to Doflamingo, beats Sheep's Head, loses to Yonji, Judge, and Niji. I'm not counting the Luffy fight, ties with Oven and Page 1. I'm not counting X Drake, he loses to King and Black Maria, and beats Queen. Maybe you disagree with what fights I chose to include and exclude, but using the wiki, I tried to stick with serious and important battles. This gives him 11 wins, 2 ties, and 15 losses. That's -10 points. Both Nami and Robin would be in the positives, and they're mid-tier, but Sanji, one of the monster trio, a top-tier character, is sitting deep within the negatives. So I just showed how the opposition truly rates women in battle manga, and exposed the holes in their arguments. I've also countered the entire premise of this argument in between, but just to reiterate, judging the quality of a character based on their win ratio is nonsense. Here's my conclusion. As I've said before, there are 3 tiers of characters: top tier, mid tier, and low tier. The top tier usually makes up about 5 to 10% of the total important or relevant characters. In Shonen, most men and women are placed in the mid tier. The only difference is that it's rare for a woman to reach the top tier, like I said before. There are more men in the top tier, mid tier, and low tier, so the argument of the women are always weaker than the men doesn't add up. If the amount of women in the top tier was the complaining community's issue, I wouldn't be making this video. But I also want to add some context to this. One of the reasons that there are significantly more men in the top tier is because there are significantly more male characters in general. Based on the 3-man cells makeup, a rough estimation for Naruto would say that women make up 25% of the important character population, For Bleach, since there are 2 female captains out of the 13, I'll guess 15%. And for One Piece, using the Straw Hats 2 females out of 10, I'd guess 20% of the population. By the way, if I did actual math, I'm pretty sure the percentages would drop. So using statistics, if there's a much higher population of men, there's a higher chance that they will make it to the top percentile of quality in writing or power. And as we can see, those chances apply to reality. If I'm being blunt, expecting there to be an equal number of women and men in the top tier is basically asking for special treatment towards the women at this point. In these mangas specifically, they make up less than a fourth of the population, yet they're expected to have the same amount of top tier individuals as the group that makes up over 3/4? That doesn't add up. Here's my conclusion. There are 2 major arguments against shonen females. 1 is that they aren't good characters, 2 is that they have low win ratios. The first argument is completely wrong, and I believe I showed why. I'm sure I could make individual videos defending Rukia or Hime or Nami, and I'm pretty confident that people have already done so. As for the second argument, while it is true that females don't enter the top tier, I think it makes sense considering the circumstances. I'm not saying stop complaining, you're lucky you're getting anything. If it were me, the first thing I'd be complaining about is the amount of females. If the amount of females in shonen starts rivaling the amount of males, and the number of characters in the top tier are still heavily in favor of the men, then I'd say there's a problem with the power cap of females in anime. Funnily enough, Fairy Tail is the shonen manga that I'd say has a close to even split between the genders, and there are actually women in the top tier, like Urza and Mirjane, or several of the female antagonists. But a potential counter-argument to the top tier imbalances is that IRL sports are unbalanced like this too, which is true, but that's another argument for another time. Overall, having most to all women in mid-tier is not battle manga failing its female characters or writing terrible or garbage women, especially when you take into account the percentage of women in the stories. People in the community try to treat this like the problem goes deep when it really doesn't. In conclusion, battle shonen have well-written female characters. Shonen didn't fail its female characters. You did. Shonen doesn't have a female problem. You have a problem with the way you grade characters. Uno reverse card, bitch. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.